Welcome, welcome everybody. Hope everybody is well. I'm just going to hide the chat for a moment, and then obviously we will, carry on. Yeah, but feel free, write in your questions. That's obviously, no problem at all. And obviously, I'll go through what I'm going to go through, and then I'll obviously go through the questions at the end. And so we're obviously going to do a breakdown of, what potentially might be happening, how might, markets be opening, why, where, how, when. And so we've obviously had big escalation this weekend. For those of you who are, members, you've obviously got access to the tool. I have got all the macro intelligence tool. I have got weekends in here, and obviously one thing that is, high is we've got escalation risks. All right, so we have had um, bombs and drones being dropped in Kuwait, UAE, yeah, loads of different places. That there's also for any uncertified ships, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. That's what's coming from Iran, but then Trump is, saying that, the military. Excuse me, I always yawn on on Sunday evenings. I'm not sure why. It isn't you, it's not me, it's just what happens. Um, yeah, so basically, Iran are obviously, saying that the Strait of Hormuz is closed. However, the US are saying that with military escort, everyone's getting through. So it's that other kind of angle where we don't really know what is true. There's, still obviously diplomatic talks happening. Um, so we've got to kind of judge how markets are going to react. So, like always, I don't recommend, that anyone thinks, right, you know what, there's going to be a massive gap. There's going to be this action, which there probably will be. I'm going to hop on and go all in tonight. All right. So remember how we trade. All right. We understand, the overall weekly macro outlook every single day. Yeah. All right. So we understand it, so rather than us rushing and worrying and trying to hop on as, markets open and exposing our account to a load of risk. What we to do is sit back on Sunday evening, re relax, chill out, and then we'll obviously let Asia kind of tell us the story, paint us the picture, because we're not just going to rush to capitalize tonight. We're going to capitalize Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but we're going to do it in the correct way with the correct risk, and we're going to increase our probabilities by understanding the overall macro outlook. So that's our plan. That's why I don't trade Sunday evenings ever. Because I'd like to let obviously Asia paint the picture, potentially obviously how the week is going to start off tomorrow. Um, but one thing that we can, or a couple of things that we can look out for, and it's not gold. All right. So the first one is oil. All right. If escalations are high, if the Strait of Hormuz is closed, we're going to be back up trading at these areas here. All right. We're going to be in between 90 and 100. If there's a little bit of escalation, but obviously it's still open with, military escort, I think we're going to be trading between 80 to 90. And so it'll be interesting to kind of, see what happens here. But I'm kind of expecting probably by the end of tomorrow us to be 100% above 90. That would be my kind of view on obviously what potentially might happen. But this obviously war has been up and down. up and down. It's escalated and then it's de-escalated and then it's escalated and de-escalated. So I'm kind of, sitting on the fence here in regards to, everything that's happening. Obviously, one thing that I'm glad of, I obviously flew home from Dubai last Tuesday. I was glad that I did because I'm pretty sure that they've stopped or, slowed down flights. So yeah, let's we'll wait and see what happens. But oil will be one that we can look out for here. Yields are the other. Now the interesting thing about yields is they're already trading high. All right. So if we do have a confident escalation, we are again just like oil. We're gonna push up here, right? Now, if oil pushes up, and if yields push up, expect dollar to be trading probably peaking these highs here over this week and potentially coming in to tap this 102. Yeah. All right. These are all, things which we've got to be aware of. Now, if yields go higher, if dollar goes higher, and if oil goes higher, gold is the one where we've got to be a bit on the fence on at the moment. All right. Remember, this isn't a normal war, and I did mention this in the channel that every kind of, I guess, inexperienced trader who's now a mentor tries to obviously understand macros, and they just presume escalation gold high. All right. Well, we've had escalation, just to point it out to you, since March. All right, since the beginning of March here. Yeah, that's when our escalation started. Now we've had escalation. Has gold pumped? No. All right, plain and simple. Gold hasn't, not pumped. Now, there's a couple of interesting kind of areas or, zones to kind of watch for gold, and I do want to go over this because I really, really want you guys to understand what potentially, might happen and how kind of worrying it is. So we've got three areas here, right, in my eyes, and that's these, three here. One is pretty much where price is, all right, and then two and three is, yeah, where we could potentially go to. Now, if we do have huge escalation, long-term gold's going to go down here, but I don't think that will happen because oil would have to rise, and if we look at the price of oil, that would be an all-time high in 2008. Next, I actually think this could potentially get tapped here, October 21. So COVID. I do actually think that then there is potential for obviously oil to tap into this area here. Um, so let's well wait and see. But for this to happen, the Strait of Hormuz has to be closed, and talks have to be kind of cancelled. Iran fly home. US troops land in Iran if they already haven't. We're obviously not going to find out. But obviously, these are all things to, look at. So the key things are oil and yields. If these two go higher, that's going to drag the dollar index higher, and then that is going to potentially push gold, put a bit of weight on it because, investors are going to get a lot more money from investing in yields, the dollar and oil than they will with gold, So, and I don't think gold's really, recovered at the moment anyway. So it'd be quite interesting to, see what happens tomorrow. Now, the next one to look out for is yen. All right, so yen's going to be the interesting one here. Yeah, right, because we did have a bit of a drop. So we had a drop Thursday of not last week, the week before. We then come up and touch these highs, and then we obviously had another drop here. Now, yen gets hurt when yields are high. All right, because yes, Japan imports everything. All right, and what is 90% of things priced in? The US dollar. Yeah. All right. So if the dollar is high and obviously they're importing, especially energy, so in regards to oil, then Japan gets hurt. Now we're already in kind of worrying um areas. We obviously have to go on a monthly time frame to look at. I mean, I was about one the last time that USD was where it is, so a long time ago. But yeah, we've got to be aware that obviously, yes, if yields scream higher, if oil screams higher, if the dollar screams higher, all of these yen pairs should start to, strengthen. Um, so we'd want to see things like, be buying USD JPY. We'd want to buy CAD JPY because obviously CAD is, heavily linked with oil. So that would obviously be one that we'd be looking at too. Potentially Swiss, Swiss JPY might push up a bit higher. So these are obviously all, yeah, all kind of things that you could potentially look to trade by using, um, macros. Now, we're obviously going to have a look at the economic calendar. All right. Now, well, one thing you guys have to be aware of is, yeah, this escalation is going to take over any momentum that any, news coming out ever would. All right, so it's going to drive more than what anything else is. However, we can still keep an eye on where everything is, and obviously that's the beauty of the intelligence tool that I've created. It's going to give you all the things to kind of look out for and but and focus on for this week. All right, and so if any of you don't have access, then drop the team a message, and obviously they'll create your logins, and make sure you do things, like the course and stuff, because I'm probably going to change it at the end of July. I'll mix up the questions, and yeah, there's also a risk calculator on here too. So right, economic calendar. So Monday, not much happening. Not much happening at all. We've obviously got a few speakers in the evening. We got obviously Wallard speaking in the evening too, but that's about it. Tomorrow is going to be driven pure on escalation only, so it might be a bit tricky to trade tomorrow. Tuesday, we have got, some Chinese inflation data that's going to obviously relate to Aussie, because obviously Aussie and China are key trade partners. That's, something that you can do your homework with. Just have a look at the percentage that every economy trades with another economy. But obviously, the biggest one is Aussie and China. So if the Chinese economy is doing well, it tends to help prop up Aussie, and obviously vice versa. If it's not doing very well, then that's obviously going to have a bit of a negative impact too. Then obviously Tuesday, the big one. We've obviously got inflation data. This will be quite key. I actually think this is going to move markets quite a lot, just purely because uh, Kevin Walsh, who's the head of the Federal Reserve. He's the chairman. He's obviously coming out the blocks very aggressive. So if inflation is high, then yeah, by all means, he's gonna keep, interest rates higher for longer. If it's low, then yeah, market expectation might be that they're going to start cutting it earlier than expected. I think it's about 60% chance that they're going to hold. All we've got to look at is obviously these percentages slowly changing, and yeah, we obviously might see some big changes. Obviously, we've got GDP and unemployment rate for China, so we could be. We've not traded Aussie very much this week, but I do think that we potentially, might be because gold, big obviously driver for Aussie. They're one of the biggest exporters of gold, because obviously it's mined in Australia. So gold and Chinese, data coming in. Yeah, we could have some good movements in Australia. So let's wait and see what happens there. Apart from that, we've got obviously some manufacturing data, nothing else. That Thursday, we've obviously got some UK GDP, trade balance, and then obviously again, big US week this week. We've got retail sales, jobless claims. And then Friday again, inflation data for euro expected to come in as expected as previous, so not much change. Let's have a look at what is the US. So US is supposed to be coming in slightly higher. So that'll be quite interesting to see. And then Friday, got obviously some import export. We got housing, and then obviously a bit later on we got Atlanta Fed GDP. So pretty rammed, week for everything that we trade, which is pretty cool. It's pretty hyped, So Aussie, loads of China data, and gold should be impacted quite heavily. So that's going to be good. Yen, so USD JPY, we got the possible intervention. Plus, we've got if yields and oil drive higher, that's going to make things really interesting. Uh, Pound, we've got a bit of data coming out on that Thursday. Euro, we've also got inflation data on Friday, and US dollar is completely, rammed. And so expect the markets this week to be pretty crazy, pretty crazy. So yeah, let's wait and see what happens here. Let's have a brief kind of look at the charts, as in obviously what's been happening on a daily and a weekly. As you can see here, Aussie on a weekly, it tried to push down, couldn't, tried to push up, couldn't. So it's pretty much, finished where it started within kind of, yeah, 16 pips. So yeah, not a lot here. Aussie, we stayed away from trading just because it's been pretty horrible price action here. But I do like everything that's happening. I think, if we were looking at everything, then, we're gonna want to see one of these two break, and obviously then we can look to either take it back up to these highs or take it down into, some of these liquidity spots here. Um, Pound, pretty happy here. But it's made up some ground here, but as you can see, we've got a key level 1.34, which has been holding really, really well here. Tried to breach the previous week rejected, tried to breach the last week, rejected. There's been a lot of action here, so it's 100% a level that we need to be aware of. But again, we need to know how markets are going to open. If they open how they've opened previously, where yields has been trading higher, oil has been trading higher, and the dollar has been trading higher. Expect us to come in and test these, kind of levels here. So let's wait and see what happens there. Euro has been tailing off. So, news out of Europe hasn't been great. So yeah, let's wait and see what kind of happens here. But obviously we do have this area here, and then we could even be tailing off into this kind of area here, which I expect to kind of happen is, we're kind of melting towards here. Gold, like I said, little bit on the fence about what could potentially happen here. I want to wait and see how market opens, because it's got, yeah, there's lots of different options here. And again, like I explained, if yields are trending higher, if oil's trending higher, that's going to drag the US dollar up, and that's going to send this even higher. So could even be targeting this 165. So let's wait and see what happens. Right, let's answer some questions. So get your questions ready. Here we go. Um, Yes, so starting with rocks. Friday was my first day. Yes, I liked it. Do you also do long-term trades? Yep, every single day, Monday to Friday. We've tweaked the time slightly, so 8 o'clock is when the intraday trades are, and then 1:30 to 2 is afternoon. So New York intraday timings. So watch out for those ones. Greg, I know you've explained this many times, and I know this war is all related, but why is the dollar being used as a safe haven and not gold? So yeah, one thing that you have got to remember, what's oil priced in, right? Oil's priced in US dollars, all right? Like everything is, gold is, so naturally, if yields are high, if oil's high, then the dollar is going to be high, because everyone's not going to stop buying it. They're just buying it, and it's more expensive. But what they buying it in, and then that's obviously what's going to drive it up. Rocks. Do you also trade oil? I used to, but I'd stay away from it, because I generally feel that the oil market is owned by the minority, and probably a little bit like a Bitcoin, it can be manipulated, One thing that so I've started watching Landman, and I'm obviously into stuff like that anyway, and yeah, it's interesting watching that for anyone who wants to watch it. It's on Paramount, same writer and producer as Yellowstone, which I also enjoyed. Yeah, but it's actually really really interesting. Yeah, if you want to understand a bit more about the oil industry, and the actual the, the actual power that it has. Um, Excuse me if I get your name wrong. Nerjus. Hi, hey, Jimmy. What about tomorrow? Are you doing as usual, or are you going live with your pre-market setup? So no, no, one thing that I'm quite, passionate about. I'm going to trial it this week as well. Is I want you guys to really understand, what I'm looking at and why, and obviously things like the routine, blending in the intelligence tool, understanding everything. Um, and so I'd rather every day at 8, do it all basically in front of your eyes, so there's, nowhere for me to hide. So yeah, and obviously hopefully Monday to Friday, a few weeks in, and obviously you've watched me every day break it down. You guys, should be in a very, very similar routine, and it'll really, really help you. Greg, OPEC might change output, which could affect oil price, but not as much as escalation. No. So one thing you have to remember, 20 to 30% of the world's oil supply comes from Iran, or comes, through the Strait. So if that is closed, there's 20 to 30% less, oil out there on the, market. And obviously, when there's less of something, prices increase and everything becomes a bit more expensive, So that's going to be the key. It's not so much all the them, dropping bombs here and them dropping bombs there. It's whether the Strait of Hormuz is open, or if it's only like half open or a bit open. Rocks. When you normally use 0.01 on gold, how much can you use on USD? Well, first of all, it's your choice. But obviously, if you think about gold, and I did this video on Saturday. Is gold's average movement might be, say 700 pips, all right, and obviously GBP USDs might be 70, all right. So you can technically, if you think about it, gold has moved 10 times more, so naturally, if you're using those mathematics, then obviously if you're trading 0.01 on gold, then currencies you can use zero point 0.1. VP, are you expecting there to be a big moves during Asia? I mean, I think everyone's expecting there to be big moves during Asia. So, but it's whether it will happen, But obviously, yes, the overall market expectation is that, there's going to be a pretty hefty open, and I think I personally think that, even on things like gold, we might see a small pump up, but then a drop, massively, especially if yields and dollar and oil open up higher. Um, Phil sent you a question to your Telegram regarding lower time frame entries. Yeah, they're really, really, really quick. And I'm using lots and lots of different things to enter it. So what I'm going to do is work on the next. It'll probably take me about a month, but I will try and do it as beginner friendly as I can, because I don't want anyone to yeah, to fry anyone's brains. Greg the Landman is awesome. Do you trade SP 500 and NAS 100? No. I've got I trade, stocks. Stocks is the other thing as well, is if yields, dollar and oil trend higher, the stock market should be round about break even to dropping off, slightly. The only stock I've got money in at the moment is SpaceX. This yellow line is my entry here, so I'm a little bit down, but you know what? Stocks are obviously, that long-term play. Phil, Dutton Ranch. Yep, I actually finished that yesterday. I had 3 episodes to watch, and I binged it. Eleanor At what time in the morning does the macro tool update and reflect the morning's situation? Will we have 2 hours time difference? All right, so good question here. So Asia is marked out here. So I need to have a look through. So Asia is here. It's from like 12 until I think that says like 8. London from or 9, London from 7 until 4, and then New York from 12 until 9. So what I would kind of expect, or you can obviously generate this at any time, but obviously I would generate it, as a kind of, session opens, so London probably about, 7. Great time to kind of don't do it, but yeah, you can generate it as many times as you want to. What's your take on weekend candles, especially for gold? Um, yeah, I had said, one thing you need to be aware of if you're trading um tonight, just be aware every broker gets their spreads and just turns it up, because they know how keen the retail market is to get back into trading. So that's obviously another reason why I'd stay away from I'd stay away from trading on a Sunday evening. Um, There we go. Phil can't do the 8 a.m. Zooms. Greg, if you like Billy Bob Thornton, you should watch G Goliath on Prime. All right, maybe I'll check that one out. Ian, can you quickly cover off shorter timescale entries and how best to process? Planning to do some this week, but found them hard to gauge the entry from the range and how quick it moves. Well, I'm obviously entering them as I'm posting, So there's an area, so anywhere within that area of entry, just like obviously we do, normally you can enter. There's also a pinned message. So I would recommend taking 75% at TP1 and just obviously letting it run. So yeah. Hi Dan, please, how do you mark your daily range? You use TradingView on the 50-minute. So I know I use the daily. Yeah. All right. So if we were to mark out here, all right, so you want to be kind of looking, roughly, so for example, you want to judge like a recent candle that's been a little bit in between, but I did put all the ranges in the video. I think gold was like 700 to 1,000 pips, So if you were to say hypothetically do this candle here, I use where has it gone? This here. All right, so price range. All right, you can do it here. It's down here under measurers. Yeah, and all you've got to do then is where the candle is, just obviously use it as a bit of an extra confidence. But like I mentioned yesterday, you can pretty much guarantee that if price, say it opens up here, once it reaches here, if you also use the RSI, all right, you can guarantee that when price is here, the RSI will be down here. All right, so that we wouldn't obviously trade off of it because of it, but I would use it as, an extra two confidences to add on to your reasons why you're going to take that trade. But right, I'm going to end it here. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Drop me some feedback in the chat to obviously, let me Know that you've enjoyed it. Have a great evening. And yeah, I'll be up nice and early and we can get started. So let's absolutely smash it. Have a good one, team. Have a good one.